Terry, this is a good one.
Yeah, it was the year of Mars in many ways, with three successful missions, all more or less the same time. And that's not just coincidence, because basically the Earth and Mars line up to make a launch date the most favorable. And three different nations took advantage of that. And we talked about this a lot over the period since then. I think the most spectacular one has to be Perseverance plus that helicopter, the Ingenuity helicopter. When I first looked at Mars through a telescope many years ago, the idea of flying a helicopter on Mars was just, it wasn't even science fiction. Nobody just even thought of it, and now we're doing it. So, first of all, was this mission with Perseverance. We talked about the 7 minutes of terror to get everything down on the surface intact, which they did. They had the rover with a little helicopter underneath it. Going through this very quickly, basically the helicopter was dropped down onto the surface, the rover moved away, and then after testing all the systems, they started flying it. And because of the time delay, you cannot do this actively from Earth. You can send a command to start a process, but you cannot actually fly it live because depending on the actual distance of Mars from the Earth, you're talking about of the order of half an hour time delay between the signal being sent and it arriving there. So it's autonomous. They send a command saying, right, do your next flight, and it knows what its next flight is to be, where it's to go, how far it's to go. Then it does it itself. And this is just absolutely amazing. And the advantage of having this little helicopter is that obviously it can get up and have a look around over a much greater distance, see obstacles, see interesting terrain, interesting features, interesting rocks, and then the rover can follow it and go there. And of course, the whole purpose of the rover is to search for well, first of all, evidence of water where there may well have been life in the past, and then to search for evidence of life. We doubt if there's active life there at the moment, certainly not on the surface, possibly very remote chance that there's some underground. But the other interesting thing is, and this will again be a subject probably of some future chats if we go that long, is it's taking core samples. It's drilling down into the surface of Mars, down to about a meter, I think, extracting samples, and they will then be stored and will be retrieved by a future mission. Now, that's too complicated to go into detail now. But that is all working very successfully. The helicopter has just done its 16th flight. You can search and see all sorts of videos of that. And it really is amazing, particularly when you think how thin the Martian atmosphere is. It's about the same as the Earth's atmosphere at a height of 100,000 feet. And that's higher than even the very highest planes can go to. When you're up that high, you basically need a rocket. There's not enough air to provide lift. But of course, they designed the helicopter to be extremely light. And it works. It's absolutely amazing. But the Perseverance wasn't the only mission. China also astounded the world by getting a 100% success on its first mission to Mars. And it's the only country that has ever done that. It did an orbiter, which orbited the planet for a couple of months, looking at suitable places for the rover to go down and land. They then landed the rover, and it has also been exploring Mars. Now, because we're not just as fully tuned into and have availability to the latest science coming from that, we don't have an awful lot of information yet, but no doubt that will be released at some time in the future. But again, an absolutely perfect mission. The orbiter is still there, and it's measuring the weather and so on, and relaying images back. And the third country to achieve this was the United Arab Emirates, which we don't normally think of as a spacefaring nation. But they also got a mission to Mars, not quite so elaborate or adventurous. It's purely an orbiter, but they got it there, got it into orbit, first attempt, and it is studying the weather on Mars on both a daily basis and on a seasonal basis. Now, might think, well, what sort of weather is there on Mars? Because the atmosphere is so low, there's no sort of rain or storms or hurricanes or tornadoes or anything like that. But it does have its own weather. And particularly, there are things which we call dust devils, which occur during the Martian summer, where you get local heating. And just like a mini tornado on Earth, these dust devils get active, and they can actually persist, and they move across the surface of Mars with whatever the prevailing winds are. Not as bad as we saw in the opening sequence of the Martian film. That was the only thing that was really a bit over the top. But they do move across the surface. You can see the funnel effect, if you like, of the dust and the track that they make across the surface. And by tracking those dust devils, we can see what way the winds are actually moving on Mars and when. So 3 successful missions, particularly for China and the UAE, to get it right first time, when you consider the number of other missions from both NASA and Russia that failed over the years. To get it right first time really was pretty good going. And I'm sure you'd agree on that, Nick.
Oh, it really is. I mean, currently there's 8 orbiters now around Mars, and you think, again, you go back to, when you and I were growing up, Terry, and I can just about remember Viking being the first successful, soft landing on the surface of Mars that worked. Obviously Mars 3 had landed there before, but only worked for about 15 seconds. But the first truly successful mission on Mars being the Vikings in 1976. And you just think, you look at Mars and to think there's 8 spacecraft orbiting it, and a barrage of rovers on the surface as well. And going back to that helicopter thing, I was doing some research on this, and the highest height most helicopters can go is around about 12,500 feet on the Earth, unless they're turboprop helicopters. Some of the ones that work in the Himalayas on the rescue systems can go up to about 25,000 feet, but that's it. They can't go any higher. So to think that they've got this helicopter working, functional, completely autonomous on a planet, tens of millions of miles away, quite happily flying around, taking images, and working in an atmosphere that's so thin, as you said, it's like the equivalent of the atmosphere almost on the edge of space on Earth. It's just incredible. And then the UAE, as you said, fantastic first mission. The Indians, a few years ago did the same. It is remarkable. It's a great time to be kind of interested in Mars again. And hopefully in the coming years, we're going to finally see people land on the surface, but we'll see.